Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips, Heather Marchant here.
Always
at your
fun.
service.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Always great.
So the topic today came from, so many different places. I'm not sure I want to nail it down to one. Did it come from a listener? I guess that's the only thing that really matters, Heather.
I mean, it's a question we get. So I would say yes, but it wasn't like a podcast discussion, like, please discuss this. So.
I mean, you may have come up with this on your own and you're thinking, well, yeah, I was going to email it in, but I didn't email it in. So you should have, because then we would have given you credit for it. Yes.
Next time, please do.
Sure. So we're going to talk about why sellers want to work with us in particular. And we're going to expand that scope and talk about other companies. We're also going to talk a little bit about, in general, why people work with professionals, just kind of in general.
Yeah.
And so with that, let's get started, Heather.
Yeah, I think it's something that we get asked often, but I don't think we've ever really covered fully in an episode. I think we've covered it indirectly multiple times.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you listening right now most likely aren't a builder, most likely aren't a rehabber. If you are, that's fantastic. But this is relevant to you for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. And let me give you a reason why. We'll just start out with kind of this overarching view where people hear things and so they think that they're true. Let me give you one of those. Mm-hmm. I was just down in Florida. I was looking on some properties, and the topic came up like, hey, so I was talking to a realtor down there, and he said, hey, so how do you guys work? Do you guys just add a big fee on top of whatever you negotiate down, and then you just take the difference? And I said, no. He goes, yeah, well, there's a lot of guys out there that do that. You know, they really mark the properties up like a ton. And I said, yes, I'm aware that there are people like that. And Heather, I think we were talking about this. We have clients who straight up ask us, hey, are you doing this? Are you doing what these other people, I hear people doing, where let's say we negotiate with a seller and the property should be worth $250,000, and we negotiate them down to whatever, let's say 200, just to make the math easy. And then we just go and go, okay, well, we're going to sell it for 260, try to push the envelope, and we're going to take the 60 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's an exaggerated example, but people do this.
Yeah. And they can put clauses in their contracts that say you have to pay over appraised value if it comes in below the purchase price. If the appraisal comes in below the purchase price, you have to pay the purchase price no matter what, Now,
there are people who do this because they control the inventory. And there are also people who do this who are kind of like our company, where they go out there and they market the properties and sell the properties, right? So both ways they do this. Now, that is not what we do. And it's a little bit shocking that sellers of properties allow this to happen, and yet they do. They absolutely don't care as long as the property sells, which is remarkable to me. It's actually kind of shocking, but it happens all the time. I talked to at least 3 different people down in Florida who've seen this recently.
Yeah, it's eye-opening. I think. Yeah, I think that it's maybe something that people don't consider, and when they ask us, am I overpaying when I am looking at property through RP Capital specifically? And I just got that question this week, and it was actually kind of fun to revisit it. And one thing that I did this Ron, maybe 2 years ago, that I did a little small study, and I looked at a sampling of closings. I just pulled a random sampling of closings, and I pulled how often the appraisals came in high, at value, or below the purchase price on the contract. And it was the exception. Most of our appraisals came in above asking price. And we don't play the game of having to whatever the purchase price is, no matter how it appraises. So most of the time our investors come out winning.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a little shocking to me that this happens, but it does. It happens all the time. Now, there's a whole host of reasons why people work with us. That's not the only reason, but the sellers out there, most of the sellers that every single seller that we work with has, similar core values to ours where they wouldn't do this anyway. This isn't something that they would do. Why do they like working with us? So, I mean, that's a good thing. We protect our clients. That's fantastic. But why the sellers? This is one of the reasons why sellers want to work with us as well, because when they're used to people coming in there and doing this, when we come in and we say, no, we just take regular real estate commission fee, right? They say, wait, what? Yeah. I mean, that's all we do. There's no we're not marking anything up or anything like that. There's not like 8 people that need to get paid in the middle of this deal.
Yeah.
It's you and us. That's it. Right. So that's one reason why sellers like to work with us. One of the other big ones that came out of this Florida trip is that we do the escrow.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is
a lot.
Big time suck. I mean,
yeah.
you know this, if you've closed on your own home or on an investment property, any kind of properties, you know this escrow process is long. By the way, we're trying to shorten it up. We are using tech to try to shorten this thing up. I've already said that. I'm very excited about it, though. This process is long. It can be 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It can be a little bit longer than that, depending. So it's a big deal because if I'm a seller, a builder, and I'm trying to move 20 properties and I have to perform 30 days worth of escrow on all 20 of those properties, I have to have staff to do that. And that's one of the main benefits of working with us is that we have that team. That team, they know how to do this like over and over and over again. And so it's far less work for a seller work with a company like us than it is for them to even sell their own properties, because we handle this massive piece of selling properties, which shouldn't be so complicated, but it is. It just is. So another massive reason why sellers work with us.
Yeah, I think just the communication alone.
What else we got, Heather?
Yeah, just having to communicate with the clients. That's huge. Takes a lot of time making sure you're having a good experience for the client in purchasing, that they have regular, consistent information is super helpful for a seller, and it takes time.
Yeah, and a lot of this is tech enabled, which nobody else has what we have because we built this proprietary. But sellers can see what's going on. So can our buyers. So can our lenders. Everybody who's involved in the process can see everything that's going on. It goes back to that communication point that Heather just made. Super, super important. It's one of the main ingredients to having a good escrow timeline is communication between all the parties.
Yeah,
especially when properties are in the construction process and they're not built yet. They're not completely done yet. And, working through all of that, helping get things closed in a timely manner with a whole bunch of moving pieces. That's a tricky thing. And we excel at that. I think some of the other things that are really, really important on from a seller's perspective is the ability to actually move properties quickly.
Yes.
Because they make money by turning the real estate as quickly as they possibly can. Build it, sell it. That's what they want done. If it sits on their books, Heather, we talk to builders all the time. They have these, they have properties sitting on their books. It kills their ability to continue to build.
Yeah.
Especially now.
For sure.
Banks, the way that they are.
For sure. I think the other thing too that's relating to that, Ron, is how many times we hear from builders, but also rehabbers like, oh, I don't like the paint color. Or I'm not in love with the nitpicky, I made that up, details of the property that the buyer can nitpick at and say, I don't like this or that. So the cancellation rate with us is a lot less, right? Because these are investors. It's like, is it durable? Are the tenants going to like it? Like, it's not, we don't want to necessarily have like lime green walls, but it's less, less nitpicky, I guess.
Plus, it's a repeatable process. One of the things as investors that you want to do whether you buy properties from us or not, you want to keep everything the same so that when you're replacing things on multiple different properties, it's all kind of the same.
Yeah.
And this allows builders to do the same thing. They can build, a couple of different floor plans and everything is the same. It's easy and it's super repeatable.
Yes.
All of their people know. They can put in systems and processes to make sure all of this works just great. And it speeds the process up for them.
Yeah, exactly. And being able to sell to the same client over and over again. I have one client in particular right now that they've had a rough experience with this one seller, and I've been able to say to the seller, "Hey, look, like if you need to do right by this client, because you better believe," he's like, "I know, they can buy more properties for me." Like having that rinse and repeat part of it is super awesome. Multiple purchases.
Yeah, super critical, right? So being speed to sell, really, really important. Escrow process, mission critical. The repeatable process where you can build the exact same thing over and over and over again, really, really cool. All of this, plus if they're a retail builder or they're selling to the open market, we're not taking away anything from what they're doing. All we're doing is bringing a set of buyers that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And all of you listening, this is the cool thing. When we go and approach them, we can say, "Hey, look, we can take 10 to 20% of your inventory this year," which means if the builder's smart, when we actually approach them, we say, that doesn't mean we're going to take from what you already have. It means you can build 20 to 30 extra percent this year. You can expand your business. So keep doing what you're already doing, unless you hate it. And then, of course, you can switch. Because the other thing is, when the market changes, understand, sellers, that when the market changes, our people keep buying. Investors continue to buy, right? Homeowners sometimes don't. Sometimes homeowners stop. They get scared. They freak out. And there's these lulls. But investors continue to buy. You can count on them where you can't count on the retail market buyers.
Yeah, always. And in any market, interest rates rising last year, sellers that don't have a relationship with a company like ours, they were left told, like you said, Ron, having all these properties on their books. So,
and I think this is where it also comes down to talking about companies like ours. Most of those companies also slowed down because they've never been through, most of the companies that are out there that do what we do a great job. They just haven't been through market cycles. And so they don't understand how to pivot quickly enough. So if the seller is reliant on another company to bring them business, and that particular company doesn't understand how to pivot, it can really slow down your business. Where in times like that, as you guys already know, we increased our ad spend. We geared up for all of that, and we hired more people because we knew what was coming, right? Because we've already been through this cycle before, and we are able to continue to sell properties while other people are slowing down. We didn't really slow down. We actually sped up.
Yeah. It's like magic sauce. Just being able to have that consistency all the time, not having to work necessarily if you don't want to, because they can, but working with a local agent and listing on the MLS and having to deal with open houses and all of that stuff. Investors can go and see their properties, but they don't have to. And most of them choose not to because of the time to travel. And so you don't have to worry about all of the liability or details of orchestrating that. So,
and the other thing is creativity. I try to sell stuff on the open market sometimes, and I'll talk to my realtors. I did this in Memphis. I was trying to sell some houses in Memphis, and I'm like, "Hey, what's the main concern why people aren't buying the houses that I have listed on the market?" "Well, I think it's mostly payment, because the interest rates and everything." I said, "Cool. Why don't we buy down the interest rate for them?" "Well, how do you do that?" And how would I tell the people about that? And I'm like, "What? Wait a second. You guys don't do this? Like,
Yeah.
This is like sales 101 for real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't know how to do that. They're not creative. They don't understand how to make the deal work. And so when the people come through the open house and they go, yeah, well, it's a little bit out of our price range, nobody can get it into their price range.
Yeah.
Where we are super creative on the investment side of being able to take properties and go, okay, this is the property we've got. Let's move a bunch of levers, financial levers, whatever we can to be able to make this thing a really good deal, attractive, because there's more than just the price.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most realtors and also most people who do what we do, they don't know about all of the levers. They just aren't creative enough problem solvers to figure it out. And I realize that I'm patting ourselves on the back pretty substantially during this show, but it is important. Like, we've been doing this for a long, long time. We've been doing this since 2005, and man, we had to be really creative during the market cycles and all of the different shifts that we've been through.
Well, I think it sounds like, patting ourselves on the back. At the same time, Ron, I mean, we get asked this all the time because I think people assume that the sellers, when you don't know, you assume. So you assume that the sellers are, somehow in our pocket or vice versa. And so we have some kind of deal going and we're in cahoots to rip somebody off, right? Because you don't know. And so I think talking about it openly is really helpful, because otherwise I've seen it so many times that clients assume that there's something shady going on, or they're the one getting ripped off, right? That they're overpaying, or I've had clients say paying a premium. I've even had clients say, I know I'm paying a premium and it's worth it to me.
Like, okay, well, I'm glad it's worth it to you, but you're not.
Yes.
Look, there were people who were paying premiums. We talked about this at the beginning of the show. There were so many people, because I've talked about this before on the show. The government screwed up the appraisal system.
Mm-hmm.
It's so badly that properties for so long couldn't appreciate. It was impossible for them to appreciate because of the handcuffs that the government put on the appraisers, which is not normal market cycles. That's not how it normally works. And so because of that, people put these clauses in their contracts to protect themselves. And then the next thing that happened after that is once they realized people would actually close, they're like, well, let's just raise the prices.
Yes, exactly.
Right? It doesn't matter if it appraises because I've got a clause in here and they have to close anyway. Yeah. And this was happening all over the country. So it's no wonder people ask that question, because if they dealt with any of these other companies, that's literally what was going on. And there were some good companies out there that did this to protect themselves, because when they were building properties, they knew they weren't going to appraise because of these ridiculous rules, and they had costs. It used to be that you could do a cost appraisal, where a builder could turn in his costs, say, hey, look, this is what it costs to build the property. And if this person is willing to buy it for this, then that should be the appraised value.
Yeah.
We can't use that anymore. The government eliminated that, right? There used to be 3 ways that you could appraise a property. Now there's 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is it's more subjective than the other 2, which is unfortunate, because now we can't use the other 2 at all. And by the way, they are the comparative analysis. That's what we can use. There's an income approach for investment properties specifically, and a cost approach. Those were the 3 approaches. Now I'm doing continuing ed. I don't hear about the other ones at all, ever anymore. It's just the government eliminated them.
Well, I just got off the phone with a seller this afternoon, and he said, man, we're just so frustrated by appraisals because we have brand new construction that's getting compared price and value wise to homes built in the 80s because there's no other new construction. Yep. I mean, so having that creativity on board and having someone that has done this before and can help navigate those waters. I mean, we've done that for other sellers in the past where we've had no comparable sales, and we know how to handle things like that, right? Where if you're on your own and trying to even start up a rehab business or something, you'd have to have you have to hire people to help you with this kind of stuff, or work with a consultant.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
There's so many problems with this. Isn't an appraisal show, so I should probably just shut up. There's so many problems with the appraisal system right now.
Yeah.
You get a completely crappy appraisal from a person, and they don't care. They just don't care. And so that's why these sellers put these in place. And then some unscrupulous people went, "Wow, you can do that? That's amazing!" And then they took advantage of it. And that's why people ask for that. That's why people ask that question. And they assume, people who work with us, like Heather said, they assume they're paying a premium when they're really not. Like, we don't have any control over the appraiser. I wish we had more control over the appraisers, because then we could cut your costs, right? We could still have our own appraisal pool, but if we're giving all of our business to 2 or 3 different appraisers, we could cut the cost down. When we can't do that anymore. We used to be able to do that to legitimate appraisers who were doing legitimate appraisals. But now we can't do that anymore. It's a spin of the wheel. You get what you get. And if you pitch a fit, it doesn't matter.
I was going to say, you can't throw a fit.
I mean, you can. It's just not going to do any good.
Well, I think another thing... Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say it's a messed up system.
Another thing that I think is worth talking about, because I just remembered it as you were saying that, is that sometimes we have new construction that comes to us. I can think of a project just in the last 6 months that came to us, and they weren't selling. It was new construction, standing book of business, that we've already ran that scenario here. And I said, okay, well, the purchase price you have, it does not include window coverings. It does not include appliances, like a full appliances. It doesn't include a garage door opener, all the things that would make it a rent-ready property. And in order to get this property to perform, we need to add some closing costs. And the seller said, well, there's just not enough room in this for us. Like, we'd lose money. And I said, well, if you think it will appraise, then we can do that. We can add to the purchase price to include all of these incentives. So you're essentially able to finance.
Well, and there are things that if you look, if I'm a homeowner and I told the builder I wanted this stuff in the house, he would put it in the house and charge me for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, again, nobody's pulling any fast one. It's just, this is legitimate stuff that you put in a house. Like, most houses come with that stuff, but new construction, for whatever reason, just doesn't come with that stuff. You have to add it.
But we've seen clients on that project in particular. I remember clients reaching out and assuming they were overpaying because they saw the listing that the builder had previously where it was listed for less. And so they said, oh man, like, you guys marked up the price. And I'm like, well, let me explain what this is. I mean, you're getting a rent-ready property versus not, but the people that didn't call, right, and just assumed and then said, well, this is a bad deal, right? When you just don't have all the information. So I think it's worth chatting through.
Shockingly enough, you can't get that on Zillow.
Yeah, shockingly
enough, you can't get that on Zillow.
You can't. I don't know if there's window coverings.
So I hope this was super helpful, because the things that companies like ours do, and our company specifically does, is it'll, for sellers and for buyers, it eliminates a whole bunch of the work and the effort that goes into making these deals happen. We do that for the sellers. We also do that for the investors, and that's why this works so well. I guess the other thing that we learned today is you just be aware. Be aware when you're out there comparing, because we talked a week or two ago about pro formas and how they're different. Well, that's not the only thing that's different, folks. Contracts are different. The deal structure is different. People are getting fat off of some of these deals. I saw how a couple of them were done in Florida. I'm just like, gotta be kidding me, man. That is so much money that is just like scraped off of this deal. And there's like 2 or 3 people who are getting paid, plus the builder. I mean, just incredible, really. So be informed, but still go out there and invest, right? And if you are a seller, or a seller who would like to have some consistent flow of business, let us know. We're always looking for more people, more sellers, more inventory, and more areas for that matter. So
that's right.
Till next week, everybody, get out there and make something happen.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.